It's time for some data mines. Let's go! This is my favorite time of the month. Every month we get a patch, we get a bunch of stuff, and you got balance changes, and you got new emotes, and all these, albums or whatever's going on. Honestly, I don't really care. I just want to know, what are the new cards coming out? How do I plan my resources, because they're so valuable, those tokens, those spotlight caches, man, you gotta know. And the only thing that we can really use is datamines. Now, I know they're subject to change, and they do often kind of change before they're released, but it's still super fun to speculate, and I just have a great time doing it. And this time around, we got the Black Order coming February 2024. And it's going to be led by Black Swan, the Season Pass card, a 2/3 on reveal until the end of next turn. Your 1-cost cards cost 0. Not too shabby. Now, at first I was like, well, Killmonger just steps all over this and it's not so great. But then I was thinking, okay, there's a few potentials here. First of all, card coming out in January, Kyra. I'm always going to struggle pronouncing that one, but she is going to protect 1-cost and 6-cost cards, but in this instance, why we want to use her? Probably to protect those 1-cost cards. It's kind of like armor, but it's going to be across the whole board, which is pretty nice. I think that would pair very well. It's also on curve after the Black Swan, but we don't really want to do that now, do we? Because you could play Black Swan on curve, and then your turn 3, all your 1-costs are going to cost 0. And if you have like 4 in hand, that's 4 energy and savings. That's incredible value. But then you're, subject to being destroyed if you don't have Kyra out or armor or anything like that. So maybe not the best use. Maybe what we want to do is we want to play all of these 1-drops with Hitmonkey for a big turn 6. So you play Black Swan on turn 5, and then all of those 1-costs that typically you can't actually reduce the cost of, right? When we look at cards like Sarah or Quinjet, they have a line of text that says minimum of 1. Which has always kind of prevented us from playing a lot of these really cheap cards for a big burst. Well, that's where I see Black Swan absolutely dominating. I think she's going to be an amazing setup card for those crazy burst turns where you play a bunch of 1-drops, get them buffed by Kazar, get them buffed by Blue Marvel if you need to, or whatever you plan on doing, and then you play Hitmonkey, and it's just like 7 cards plus Hitmonkey or something like that. I could see it happen. It could be great. Now, of course, there's draw issues, right? We got to draw a bunch of 1-drops that we might not want to play right away, which might hinder, how much power we can actually dish out near the end or have sufficient amounts of power leading up to that final turn. So time will tell if this could actually take off, but this is energy cheat and it's going to 0. Right? If energy G is going to take you to 0, it's got to be good somehow. I mean, I don't even know which 1-costs are the best possible targets for this. Some like to be played earlier than others, so it's going to be a bit difficult to navigate that. Perhaps even in a bounce list, you're throwing them back into your hand, you throw Black Swan back into your hand, you play them again, you got the Hitmonkey, you keep going. Potential. So anyways, we got some more cards to talk about, and definitely stay tuned for the end. We're going to talk about some locations, and I got the spotlight cache schedule with all of those awesome variants and which series all these cards are going to be. So stay tuned. Next up is Cull Obsidian, a 4/10. You can only play this at a location with an Infinity Stone. Ongoing can't be destroyed. Wow, okay, so really tying the synergy to Thanos, if you think about it. I mean, basically unplayable unless you cheat him out with a Lockjaw or Jubilee or something along those lines. And then you're also maybe hoping for a little bit of location variance. Wink, wink. There's a location we're going to talk about later on. But really, when it comes down to deck building, we're looking at Thanos plus the Obsidian here. And that's what you're doing, aka the Black Dwarf. This is all, by the way, the Black Order is like Thanos' henchman. So this is kind of neat, like his organization. He's in the Avengers movies. It's pretty awesome. I always like these characters. So I'm happy to see them actually join the game. And he only has 1 variant. Actually, a lot of these only have 1 variant. There's not a whole lot datamine, unfortunately. How do I feel about this card? I don't know, dude. It's a 4/10. That's a good stat line. But it reminds me a lot of Atuma. Atuma doesn't get a lot of play, right? And you can basically do the same thing, the ongoing can't be destroyed, by playing armor and then Atuma, and then you don't have to have an Infinity Stone there. So, I don't know. Obviously, in a Thanos list, it's not that hard to actually play an Infinity Stone and then have the Obsidian played there. It's a much easier condition to meet than Atuma's because you really require armor to protect it or have it on its own, which isn't all that great. So when I compare that one to Atuma, then maybe Obsidian is a lot easier, a lot better. but definitely a lot more narrow in application. If you do not own Thanos, this is pretty much a trash card, because how are you ever going to deck build with it? I don't know if we've ever seen a card released in Marvel Snap that is so tied to another card like this. It's a bit of a weird line to walk, but I think it's actually pretty cool in this instance. I like it, but I'm only giving him 3 stars because he is just a 10 stat line. I like that he can't get Shang-Chi'd or anything like that. That's pretty good, right? You don't have to worry about him getting destroyed. But other than that, not that exciting. Just a good power output on this card. Another one is Blob, actually, which is pretty wild, because you could use Blob in a Thanos list and you're good chance you're not going to draw all your cards, and if the Obsidian is stuck in there, and that's 10 power plus probably about another 5 cards, you're going to have a pretty big blob, which is going to be really awesome. And if you can play all the Infinity Stones, get your Thanos to 20 power, you're going to have a really big blob. That's going to be a lot of fun. That card's coming out next week. But let's get to the next Datamine card. Next up is Supergiant, a 1/2. Not a very giant stat line, but on reveal, all cards played this turn and next turn don't reveal until the game ends. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to put this as 5 stars. I almost think this might be the strongest card of this season. And at first, I was underwhelmed. I was like, why would I want that? Like, Lemuria is a location. It makes it so that cards don't reveal. There's Invisible Woman out there. But here we go. Okay, here's a little bit of context as to why I think this is a very, 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 very strong card. This doesn't really matter what turn it's played. If you read and assess what your opponent is playing, what their strategy is, when their power turns are, you play Supergiant and you can nullify a lot of their synergy. So for instance, Destroy package, right? Destroy wants to destroy things turn over turn over turn to get a lot of production, for end game value, to play that death, to play that really charged up Deadpool or whatever else, right? Or that null. If they can't reveal cards for 2 turns. And that is the goal here, is we have priority. So we play our Supergiant, and any cards are played that turn, our opponent won't be able to reveal them, and the turn afterwards. So that's 2 turns of 0 production from your destroy deck. That's going to hurt a lot. Imagine running into that that's going to hurt a lot. And imagine running into that as in Conquest, you bring a destroy deck, and then like for 2 turns every single game, you can't destroy your cards. That's the whole point. That's how you get those engines going. That's going to hurt a lot. That's going to be a big setback. And there's a lot of other synergies too. If our cards aren't being shown either, it's a board-wide effect. That's the way I read this. All cards played this turn and next turn don't reveal. That's wild. They are not going to show until the end. So let's say you're against that destroy deck. So you caught them playing a Deadpool. Well, that card's never going to show. It's never going to get destroyed. And maybe they literally played Deadpool and then Killmonger or something along those lines. Bam, see you later, Deadpool. You're not even going to be able to end on the board. It's so devastating. And then there's cards like Nebula. So let's say you play this and then they play Nebula. They don't get to show their Nebula. It's never going to accumulate power. It's going to be a 1/1 till the end of the game. And maybe you tuck behind Killmonger at the same time. So you play Supergiant on turn 2, you play Killmonger on turn 3. So it's hidden in the bushes, and then it destroys all the 1-drops at the end of the game. There is crazy amounts of value to be had with this card. Maybe we even set up a scenario where we just try to hide a bunch of our opponent's cards, and then on turn 6 we play Eliath, who is going to destroy all the unrevealed cards. That's what he's been changed to. Doesn't matter what turn they were played. Now, when you look at the nerf to Eliath and you see this card, it's like, oh, okay, that could work. That could be a nasty, nasty form of control. I have really high hopes for this card. I think it's going to be super frustrating for a lot of decks. And on the flip side, could help your opponent. It could actually help them because maybe it's like some big combo setup that they're trying to establish and they don't want their cards to be revealed. And then they have priority by the end of the game. They reveal first. They're good to go. They get whatever they wanted off. And then you got to just make sure that you have priority. I'm telling you, this month seems super strong. I don't even know what would be my weakest card. They all seem like they have potential. So February looks pretty good. Let's get to the next one. Next up is Corvus Glaive, a 3/4 on reveal. Discard 2 cards from your hand to get +1 max energy. This is insane. This is probably the one I'm most excited about. Probably the one I'd pick up instantly in this month. But I honestly don't know if I fully understand the ability. I gotta be honest with you guys because the wording is a little bit confusing. and it just seems way too good. We look at Hellcow, a 4/8, you discard 2 cards. That's usually a good thing to do, discard these cards. Now, it is random, it's not targeted, and that has historically had issues. And, you know, Swordmaster is a 3/6 that discards 1 card. But, man, I'm telling you, in the right list, you want to discard a lot of cards. And if Corvus is going to discard 2 and give us +1 max energy, that's not even +1, you know, energy next turn, like a Psylocke effect. No, that's like an Electro level effect of getting +1 max energy just for discarding 2 cards, which could be our Swarm or our Apocalypse. And then we just get power. So there's just net gains here. There's just upside, which is insane to me. Of course, we could discard something we don't want to, but that's, you know, you got to look at your hand and make those shot calls, you know? And I think more often than not in a discard list, yeah, we're taking that gamble. We're going for the discard. We're getting the max energy. This is a 5-star card. Obviously narrow in that you can really only play it in a discard list, but shoot, maybe there's like a way to do some Hella shenanigans as well, right? To ramp up into that MODOK Hella or something like that. There's probably cards in our hand that we want to discard anyways. You'd have to be a little bit more cautious in that route because you don't want to discard Hella. But still, man, I think this is just a really good card for discard, and it's cool to see them get a little bit more love. They had a little bit of synergy back in August, but we haven't seen too many discard cards since, so I feel like they could use a little bit of a buff. And then, of course, Morbius, that's good. He gets +4 power off of this effect, essentially. Yeah, man, this card just seems nuts to me. The artwork looks super badass, by the way. Like this base artwork is amazing. I love that one. And the In-hyuk Lee, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, seems to be that artist showcase for this season. He has a variant for each one of these new cards. Very cool. Yeah, this is my pick for strongest one of the month. Let me know which one you guys will think will be the strongest of the month in the comments below. But let's get to the next one. And last but not least, we have Proxima Midnight, a 4/6. When this is discarded, jumps to your lowest power location that isn't full. Of course, right? It's got to have the space to jump there. It's not going to give us an M'Baku sign. Maybe it will, actually. Maybe it will. I should not say that, because if you have a full board somehow and then you discard Proxima Midnight, maybe I don't know, maybe she's gonna have a funny little emote. But anyways, I'm giving this card 3 stars. I see the value here. This is amazing. You discard this, that's free 6 power. That's fantastic. You could maybe even buff this up. You could maybe copy it with Moongirl on 4, and then on turn 5, play MODOK, and then you get 12 power for free, plus your 8 power MODOK. Amazing. Then we could even look at Corvus previously, right? Discarding this, amazing synergy between the two. Hellcow as well, discarding 2 cards, probably hitting this. Great. It's essentially 0/6 in the right, you know, application. I guess the problem that I have is we don't control where this is going to go. And even if we do, by managing our resources, it's going to end up being the least valuable location because we have, you know, not put a lot of power there. It's probably the one we were trying to lose. It does allow us to go a bit wide, and the 6 power might bring us into a situation where we're winning that one as well. But that's probably the only drawback for me, is I just don't love the randomness of, or at least the almost martyr-esque effect of power being displaced to a location that we don't necessarily want it to be placed. But it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not Martyr. Martyr's trying to lose us the game. This card is just going to flip to a spot that might not be favorable. Right? It's almost like a Wolverine flip, and sometimes you're like, I wish he didn't go there. But still, this could also go to Sanctum Sanctorum. Easy, right? We're probably got no power there, or those unplayable locations, we got no power there. So Proxima Midnight's going to just say, hey, I can go there and I want to go there, and just going to fly right over to that spot, or rather jump. So, man, I could have probably put this at 4 stars. I actually did have it at 4 stars originally. I took a star off just because I wasn't too sure if I loved the randomness, but now I'm convincing myself this is a 4-star card, and it seems pretty sick. And a really cool way to play discard as well. You almost look at it like their stature. You discard a card from your opponent's hand, it becomes a 1/6. I see this as like essentially a 0/6 in the right deck, which is just very strong, of course. So very cool card. All right, so we got the 2 new locations that I want to cover, and then we have this spotlight cash schedule. Let's get to it. All right, so for locations, Not too thrilled about these per se, but also not too shabby. We don't have art for one of them just yet. I'm probably a little bit too early here, but Black Vortex, the first card you play here becomes a random 6-cost card. We kind of just dealt with this with the last one where you play a card there and it changes from its cost to a different card of its cost. And now this is just becoming 6 cost. So you play like a 1-drop on turn, I don't know, 3 if it reveals, or turn 1 when it reveals. It becomes a random 6-cost card. That could be cool. That could be really bad. That could be Dr. Doom, or it could be Arnim Zola. So I don't know. It's just a little too RNG-esque for my liking. And then you got Sanctuary 2, I think it's going to be called. I don't know if that's just a placeholder name, but add a random infinity stone to your hand. So the Obsidian guy, the Black Dwarf we were talking about earlier, yeah, he's going to benefit greatly from this. But I imagine you're running that card anyways with Thanos. So that's just even more stones. Maybe it's pretty sick with Thanos because you have more opportunities to actually complete the quest that is Thanos and get him to 20 power. But otherwise, this is just a cool location. It gives infinity stones to other decks that aren't running Thanos, and you can just play those. They have good value. It's pretty neat. Usually they're drawing stones, though, so I wonder how that's going to work. And maybe that's why they changed the Mind Stone recently. There we go. Sometimes the Datamines bring everything together. But there you go. Those are the 2 locations. Let's check out the February schedule. Here is February. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting. A few things to note. Of course, we only get 1 Series 4 release. That is going to be Supergiant, which is also kind of interesting because I think that card's going to be really strong and it's going to be accessible to a lot of people. By the way, look at that Zabu variant, in that Darkhawk variant. That is a sick week. Especially 2 amazing cards like that. Also, because I'm putting them as Series 4 and Series 5, I don't have datamine information if they're going to change in a month or 2. This is just as I know them right now. So if Series drops do return, those cards may drop in Series, and I'll keep you guys updated if that were to change, as well as these releases, if any of them change in Series or stat line or ability. I'll definitely keep you guys updated. But this is how it's looking right now. I don't think a lot of these cards are warrant needing change, and it makes sense that 3 would be released as Series 5 and 1 as Series 4. That seems to be the trend and the bare minimum. At least I'm happy to see that in January. It seems like none of them are going to be Series 4, but then they might change that getting a little bit closer to the actual date. When I'm looking at this, I'm definitely picking up Corvus. That's my number 1. Number 2 would be Supergiant. Number 3, Proxima Midnight. And number 4, probably Obsidian, just cause, and the Season Pass card is always good. So that's kind of my ranking there for the Datamines. But very cool cards. What a great month. Really strong month. Cool flavor, cool theme, cool characters. So I'm stoked about it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Which cards you're excited for. Which ones you're going to save up for. Which ones you think are going to be the strongest. I want to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And I will catch you guys next time.